The snow was falling gently over the slopes of a luxury ski resort nestled deep in the mountains, where tourists in designer jackets sipped hot cocoa and showed off their latest gear. Among them, a woman stood out not because of her style, but because of how out of place she looked. Her coat was worn, her boots were mismatched, and instead of the sleek high-end skis everyone else had, she carried a scratched-up pair that looked like they came from a garage sale. In fact, they did bought for just a few dollars from a local thrift shop. People whispered. Some laughed. Others didn't bother hiding their smirks. "Is she serious?" one teen said to his friend. "She's gonna fall on her first run." The woman, however, said nothing. She quietly strapped on her skis, eyes focused, ignoring the looks, the murmurs, the cold judgment surrounding her. No one knew her name. No one knew where she came from. But everyone at that resort was about to know exactly what she was made of. This wasn't just another visitor trying her luck on the slopes. This was someone who had trained in silence, practiced without applause, and carried a past that made her stronger than anyone could guess. Her thrift store skis weren't just cheap. They were a symbol of her struggle, her story, and her spirit. And that mountain, she wasn't just there to ride it. She was there to own it. As she made her way to the top, some people pulled out their phones, ready to record what they assumed would be a funny fall. But what they captured instead left the entire resort stunned. Before she took her first run, she looked up at the steep path ahead, gawked and whispered something under her breath. What happened next not only silenced the crowd, but shattered a record that had stood for years. But who was she? And how did someone with secondhand skis manage to do the impossible? You're about to find out. Her name was Lena. She didn't look like a professional athlete. She didn't carry herself with the loud confidence of someone trying to impress. But behind those calm eyes was a storm that no one could see. Lena had grown up far from any ski resort, a small mountain village where winters were long and harsh. And skiing wasn't a sport, it was survival. She learned on wooden boards her grandfather carved himself. There were no coaches, no fans, no cameras. Just snow, silence, and the will to keep going. Years later, life had pulled her in different directions. A simple job, a quiet life, and not much money to spare. But her love for skiing never faded. Every winter, she'd find time to sneak away to the hills near her town. No fancy gear, no attention, just her, the mountain, and those old instincts that never left her. This time, though, something had changed. She had heard about the annual speed challenge at the resort. Tourists and athletes came from far and wide to test their limits. Lena didn't come to win. She came because she wanted to see if she still had it in her. And maybe, deep down, she wanted the world to see her too just once. But the resort wasn't ready for someone like her. From the moment she walked in, people judged her for how she looked, what she wore, and what she carried. No one knew her past. No one cared to ask. They just saw an outsider with thrift store skis and assumed the worst. But Lena didn't flinch. She had faced bigger storms than side eyes and shallow laughs. She had something to prove, not to them, but to herself. And as the starting gate buzzed and the wind howled across the peak, Lena took one deep breath and pushed off. The moment Lena's skis touched the slope, something shifted. The same people who had laughed before were now frozen, watching in silence. She wasn't just fast, she was focused, sharp, and completely in control. Her body moved with the mountain, not against it. She didn't fight the snow. She read it, felt it, understood every dip and curve like an old friend. Cameras followed her now, but for a different reason. The comments started to change. Wait, who is she? Did you see that turn? That's not a beginner. But as she picked up speed, tension built elsewhere too. Behind the scenes, one of the resort's top competitors, a local favorite named Max, watched from the sidelines. He'd won the speed challenge 3 years in a row. His sponsors were lined up. His posters were everywhere. And now all eyes were shifting to a stranger with no name-brand gear, no reputation, and no invitation. Max's coach narrowed his eyes. "She's not even registered officially," he muttered. "She doesn't belong here." That word, belong. Through the lodge, some staff started whispering. Rules were questioned. Can we even count her time? What if she wins? She's not part of the elite group. Meanwhile, Lena didn't know or care about the politics unfolding behind her. For her, this was personal. Every second down that slope peeled back a layer of doubt she had carried for years. Every gust of wind in her face reminded her why she had never given up. But the mountain was cruel. The final stretch was known as the Devil's Spine, a steep, narrow path that had thrown off even the best skiers. And Lena was headed straight for it. Far below, Max crossed his arms, watching the live feed. "Let's see how she handles this," he said under his breath. The wind roared louder. The clock kept ticking. And Lena, with nothing but thrift store skis and a heart full of fire, leaned in toward the drop. Lena's breath fogged in the cold air as she reached the top of the Devil's Spine. The world seemed to narrow into a thin white line ahead of her, sharp, steep, and slick with packed snow. One wrong move, one shaky turn, and it was over. But her hands didn't tremble. Her knees didn't lock. She'd seen worse back home, icy ridges with no signs, no safety nets, no one waiting at the bottom. But still, this run carried more weight. Because now everyone was watching. Not just the tourists and the staff, but the pros, the critics, and the ones who didn't believe she deserved to be here. The crowd at the base had grown. Some still doubted her, convinced this was luck, a fluke. Others were on edge, silently, hoping she'd pull off the impossible. Max stood near the finish line, his jaw tight, arms crossed. The pressure he once felt to win had shifted. Now it was something else. Threat, competition, fear. His coach leaned in and said quietly, "If she beats your time, it's going to change everything. This whole event, your sponsors." But Lena couldn't hear any of that. Her world was wind, speed, and instinct. As her skis carved into the icy slope, the sound of them cutting through snow was sharp and clean. She dropped into the spine like water down a mountain, stream fast, smooth, fearless. But even the best skiers have limits. One patch of ice shimmered dangerously ahead, a spot where many had slipped, stumbled, or crashed. The crowd gasped as she neared it. A moment of hesitation could end it all. From a distance, a young girl in the crowd gripped her mother's hand. "She's going to fall," she whispered. But Lena didn't slow down. Her skis hit the edge. Her body leaned, almost weightless, riding the wind with surgical precision. The finish line was in sight, but something was coming. A twist, a final turn that would either crown her in glory or send her tumbling into silence. Everyone held their breath, and Lena just kept flying. Just as Lena leaned into the final turn, her weight perfectly balanced, a sharp whistle pierced the air from below. It wasn't the sound of celebration. It was a warning. People near the finish line began murmuring. Some pointed uphill. Something was wrong. The course marshal, in a bright red jacket, spoke into his radio with urgency. The timing gate had malfunctioned. A critical piece of equipment used to track official race times had frozen just seconds before Lena's run. If it didn't register her finish, her time wouldn't count. No matter how fast she was, the record would remain untouched. But Lena didn't know. She was seconds away from finishing what might have been the greatest run of the day, or maybe the year. The crowd had gone from amazed to confused. Whispers filled the air. "The system's down. They're going to say it doesn't count. Even Max looked uncertain now, his confident smirk fading into something else. Not fear, something closer to guilt. Because here's what no one else knew. Max's sponsor, a major ski equipment brand, had quietly pulled strings behind the scenes to keep unknown competitors out of the spotlight. A quiet deal, a few technical delays, and a subtle effort to make sure only their athletes got the shine. Lena wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't on any list. She hadn't signed any big brand contract. Her victory would be a direct threat not just to Max's career, but to the system that protected it. As Lena soared across the final stretch, her shadow stretching behind her on the snow. The tension cracked like ice under pressure. The gate. Lights flickered. The official timer was blank. No beep. No record. Just silence. And then Lena crossed the finish line. She raised her arm slightly, not in celebration, but in quiet relief. She had done it. Or so she thought. At that moment, Max's coach stepped forward, speaking to the event official. Her time didn't register. It's not valid. She wasn't officially part of the event. A hush fell across the crowd. Lena stood alone at the bottom of the slope, unaware of the storm now waiting to hit her. Lena looked around, confused by the silence. No cheers, no announcement, no time displayed on the board. Just blank stares and hushed voices. She unstrapped her helmet and walked toward the side where a group of officials huddled near the timing station. A cold feeling crept into her chest. Something wasn't right. An announcer finally stepped up to the mic, his voice uncertain. Due to a technical malfunction, Lena's run time has not been recorded. At this time, her result is unofficial. A wave of murmurs swept through.